I would say, hey, we're all here in this together, no matter what. We're all going to go our separate ways, but we're all men of prep, and we're all brothers. And if you need something, we're here to lean on that. We had our successes when we had our successes when we were here, and we're going to have our successes elsewhere. But if you need somebody or you need a place to go, preps, go back to those days. Pick up that phone, call that person.
Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy Smith and welcome to episode number 42 of the Rambler podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. On this episode of the podcast, we are thrilled to have Mr. Jim Rutkowski Jr. as a guest on the podcast. Jim graduated from Cathedral Prep in 1979 and is the General Manager, Vice President of Operations, and Treasurer of Industrial Sales and Manufacturing here in Erie, PA. Industrial Sales and Manufacturing is a premier contract manufacturer and supplier of quality machined, fabricated, and assembled components. With advanced technology and highly skilled employees, Industrial Sales and Manufacturing can produce a range of components and assemblies ranging from a single prototype to millions, exactly as ordered, on time, every time. Jim's roles include overseeing the sales, banking, insurance, accounting, benefits, and workman's compensation functions of the Industrial Sales and Manufacturing Company. He is the trustee of Industrial Sales 401k and profit sharing plan, the trustee for the Rutkowski Family Foundation Scholarship Fund at Gannon University, and one of the trustees of the Rutkowski Family Foundation at the Erie Community Foundation. Jim currently sits on the boards of Gannon University, Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership, the Coqua Club, Erie Business Advisory Council of Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, and Industrial Sales and Manufacturing. He previously was chair of the Manufacturers Association of Northwest PA, Erie Regional Manufacturing Partnership, and he has also served on the boards of St. Vincent Health System, Regional Cancer Center, Develop Erie, Ben Franklin Technology Partner, Villa Center, Governor of PA Manufacturing Council, and the Erie Classic Golf Tournament. Mr. Rutkowski is a graduate of Gannon University as well, with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. Jim is a leader in the field of cost estimation, team building, and relationship building with members of the Industrial Sales and Manufacturing team, as well as over 700 historical customers at the company. He has overseen his company's production of over 25,000 distinct components in the fields of transportation, medical, power generation, golf and turf, and various other industries. Well, Jim, I have to say that's quite the impressive bio, and we appreciate you coming on the podcast. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come back to my old haunts 45 years later.
Yeah, that's right, because you're coming up on a class reunion this year, right? 45 years ago, graduated, so pretty much 49 years ago, I started coming in these doors, and it's a wonderful place. My wife and I were married at St. Peter's. I married another longtime Villa Prep family into a longtime Prep and Villa family, so we have a long history in this whole area here. Well, that's pretty funny. I didn't even realize that too. And so the school looks a little different than when you were walking the halls.
Just a little. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that's similar from when I was here, but the new stuff is awesome, and it's a great addition. And seeing young ladies roaming the halls, that's wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's been quite the journey, quite the ride over the last handful of years, and now, as you know, being an alum, as am I, just so exciting about the opportunities that are here now for the kids and whatnot. But no, as we jump in the podcast here, appreciate you coming on, and I guess we can kind of start with asking, even talking about your time at Prep. Why did you decide to attend Cathedral Prep?
Well, my attendance at Prep is normal of folks at the time, in the fact that I went to Our Lady's Christian School.
Okay.
And most of our friends from OLC ended up coming here. And I'm one of the all-team Catholic educated kids. I've got the trifecta. I went to Prep, I went to OLC, and I graduated from Gannon.
There you go.
And I roamed these halls with Mark Fatika and Fred Heinz, John Cooney, Lori Fatika from Villa, and Jim Harris. So a bunch of us had come here.
Yeah.
And there's a great rivalry between the 78 and 79 OL Sears because we all ended up coming down here, and this school was it. But it wasn't one of those where it was predetermined. My parents, if I was coming here, said you have to work in the family business to earn your tuition. So you have to have some skin in the game. And I think it's one of the most powerful things to be able to clean bathrooms and toilets when you're 11, 12 years old to pay for your prep tuition, all $700 of it.
Yeah.
And it worked its way through Gannon, and it's one of the greatest things that I've ever, accomplished because it was me and my education. But don't get me wrong, my parents, when we went to grade school, they decided instead of things, they wanted to educate their kids, and I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And today you need that education, and there's nothing finer than going to school and having the Lord in your back pocket.
Yeah, amen to that. I tell you, my parents, they made that sacrifice too, and I'm forever thankful, and I thank them often, even to this day, just to make those sacrifices, as you said, to make the education priority. For me and my sister went to school. I went to Blessed Sacrament and then prep, and for us to be able to come here, it truly did set us apart, from our peers who maybe did not have the opportunity to do so. So I can relate similarly to you, that opportunity and experiences.
And the return on investment is massive. I don't think people understand, but we chose to educate our kids. My son just graduated from prep in 2022. Our middle child went to Villa, and our other daughter went to Mercyhurst, but they all went to OLC.
Yeah.
And there's something really cool about your kids going to where you went to grade school and where you went to high school. Unfortunately, only one went to Gannon, but that's okay. I mean, there's something to be said for that prep and Gannon and Villa partnership for people that have the ability to get. My son went to Pitt and he has 35 credits, so he's literally a junior already.
Wow.
Which is fabulous.
It's amazing.
So
yeah. And when you look back on your time, what are some of the things that really stand out to you as special memories or things that made that experience so special?
I kind of have a top 5 memories.
Oh man, top 5.
Number 1, Joanne Maxwell. Miss Maxwell taught us trigonometry. I still use it today. I don't need a calculator other than to look up the tables, but learning from Miss Maxwell was a true experience, and there's nothing finer than a hard teacher that pushes you. The ability at prep, Father Dan Krasinski, who taught me religion and took us to the temple, Anchi Hesse down the street, so we could see other religions and what they did. Our yearbook staff, Mr. Weschler and Mr. Miller, my classmates, who pushed us to log our memories and remember those things. The ability at times as a group of us to go help Eleanor Gwynn out of a snow pile. And finally, just the relationships of the people and the pep rallies, the basketball and football pep rallies. And don't get me wrong, our 4 years at prep, we had losing football records. So it was pretty tough to get rallied up, but our basketball teams were phenomenal.
Yeah.
But being a cheerleader with those guys and getting a letter for cheerleading and those pep rallies in the auditorium, you can't beat it.
Yeah.
And all those things give you great things that you learn about and great educations that got me into college, and I still use those today.
Yeah. The pep rallies are legendary.
Are they still? How are they still today?
They're good still today. I'll say they are not quite what they were when I was even a student. So, but no, nonetheless, the pep rallies are obviously part of what makes that experience so special. When we get everyone together.
One of my favorite pictures is when Maggie went to Villa. She made the front page of the paper running the Villa flag down the pep rally at Villa, and I think that's just awesome.
Yeah. So cool. Well, it's great, the pride that we share, and cheering on another brother and now sister, you know, prep here, and be able to do that, and you know, celebrate in our achievements, and also encourage one another during defeats, like you said, maybe the football team, and but still being there for each other.
But the family history too is phenomenal. I mean, Mary's grandfather was in the first class.
Wow.
At prep, so that history. I mean, our family moved here my dad moved in 1955. He went across the street to Tech.
Yeah.
The closest he got to prep was driving his car down in a little brown jug on the street, tossing, you know, epitaphs back at the school. But we did. I mean, prep was it for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I know talking to you, your class is still pretty close, and you guys are already planning your 45th reunion.
We sure are. I am me personally, and there are 4 of us that went to OLC, or 5 of us. Unfortunately, one of us is no longer with us, but that still get together. 45 years. We've hiked everywhere from New York City to the Allegheny Forest. When we had nothing, we went to our hunting camp and hiked in the Allegheny Forest, to so many different places. And I mean, we probably have 30 or 40 guys that have gotten together every time, and we don't miss. We're going to get together this year, play a round of golf at Cockwell on Friday, come to this stuff on Friday night, and then usually Mark Furman or Tim Neese, one of them, lets us use their place, and we all get together on Saturday night.
Yeah,
and it's wonderful. And there's still a group of us that we still all talk.
Yeah.
And luckily in Erie, you know, people come into town, so they know I'm here. My phone number hasn't changed since I moved into my house, and my cell phone hasn't changed, so people can get a hold of me, which is great. And we have a good crew. Dan Benser is really involved in it, and you know, it's wonderful to get back to see everybody. And now we're all getting to that point. Some are retired, some are still working. Some will work; they'll never stop working. But it's fabulous to see your friends and see, you know, people you grew up with, and have those things.
Yeah. Well, and it's so exciting, you know, going to those reunions and seeing, you know, some of the class really share that bond together, and you can tell when they get together, it's, you know, they look forward to it. You know, those every 5-year reunions happening and whatnot.
And it fascinates me, and I don't begrudge anybody that doesn't go, but why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you get together? I mean, those are people that you spent time with. You spent, you know, the folks that I went to prep and Gannon and OLC, we spent 16 years together. Yeah. That's a long time.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, and that's wonderful. And the teachers and the experiences you had. So it's fabulous.
Yeah. Well, and now's the time for anybody listening, for if you have a reunion coming up, now's the time to reach out to Allison Mosier here in our office, and she'll help coordinate all the details for you to let you know about the information.
If I recall, it's July 28th through the 30th.
Third weekend of July, so sometime in there, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's always a wonderful time.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, we've had, we get a group together and we play golf every year, so we'll get together on Friday and play golf and have some fun. And I think maybe this year Dan Benser's working on a fishing charter. We had people play tennis during the day, but it's kind of cool to get together and see your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's cool. Well, appreciate you kind of looking back at the time at prep and, you know, talk about what made that so special to you. And if you don't mind, we can kind of change topics on you here. Have you on the podcast to talk about, you know, the successes you've had in your career. Kind of share with us and the listeners about maybe some wisdom that you've gained through the years. You know, as I read your bio, you wear a number of different hats, you know, at your company, and you've been on a lot of different boards, and you've probably experienced a lot of different things that are very valuable for us to be able to learn from you. And you know, so we'll kind of start, you know, talking here, like on a personal level for yourself, Jim. What would you say motivates and drives you in your roles at your company, and how has your passion contributed to the success that you've seen?
Well, I mean, the big driver for me is our business is a family business. My dad started in our garage back in 1967 as, you know, he started as a manufacturer's rep and then started, hence industrial sales, and into manufacturing. So then we started with a drill press in our garage. And basically, it was for the security of our family. And it's wonderful to see our business grow from, you know, 3 employees and a Bridgeport to today we have over 150 employees. Wow. We've done over $500 million in sales in our history. And we've made over 25,000 distinct part numbers for over 800 different customers.
Yeah.
And it's the power of habit. It's the power of doing one thing at a time and watching your business grow from one product to a manufacturer's buffet of different things. And I'm truly blessed to still go into work every day. And my dad, who's 86 years old, still comes in, and I work side by side with my sister and my brother. My sister graduated from Villa in 1983 or 82, and my brother would have been 6 years after me. And that is wonderful. And we all wear different hats, and we work as a family, and it's just wonderful to be able to go help your customers. And the key is you always have a customer. The person you're talking to is your customer. And when somebody needs something, and we look at it as just if they're your family, if somebody needs something, if you can help, help.
Yeah. Well, it's great to hear that a lot of the motivation comes from just the appreciation, is what it sounds like. Just the gratitude that you have for being in a family business, one that your dad started, and now for you and your brother and sister to carry on that legacy. Right. I'm sure it's motivating for all three of you to keep that going.
It's great to have somewhere where the power of habit. I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world as far as I can see. I live and work a mile every day. That's my commute. And I'm sure there's lots of people on this podcast that have hours and hours of commutes a week.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool to stay in Erie. It's great to see Erie change and grow. It's great to see what happens and see your kids grow and see your family in your neighborhoods. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. And to your point, we do have, I know, I can see the statistics on the podcast. We have people from California listening, Chicago, of course, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, all the central areas too. But yeah, everyone's in a little bit different scenario, different situation, and what motivates us may be different, but the important part is having that moment of appreciation for where you're at and reflection to say, you know what, I'm going to make this the best that I can do because this is where I'm at, where God has placed me, to be successful.
For sure.
So in talking about, your roles and different things that you've done, is there I don't want to say a career highlight, but, something of a level of achievement that you're particularly proud of and lessons that you can pull from that experience and what you may have learned from that?
Well, the career highlight would be longevity, would be number one. We're 56 years in business.
Yeah.
Would be one. But it's the ability. I think my highlight is to be able to connect with your customers. And, the one thing is to care and connect. And once you care and connect, and if you can find ways to serve somebody and help somebody, there's nothing better when a customer calls and said, hey, I really need this. Something happened. Is there a way that you can help? And you solve the problem and figure it out. And, and I think a career highlight is working with our family and working with, the ability with friends and things, and the ability to be able to pick up the phone and call people.
Yeah.
I mean, my business role a lot is sales.
Yeah.
And I love sales. There's nothing better than sales because you get to interact with people.
Yeah.
And in my career and in my lifespan, I was really blessed to come to prep, and I worked a lot, and then go to Gannon and then see that role and see how you connect change. Get involved in student government. Learn about that. Start a fraternity. Our fraternity, when we went to Gannon, we started a fraternity. It was 25 prep guys and one guy from McDowell. And those guys are still a lot of my close friends.
Yeah. And
doing that and seeing that, and then those people and learning those lessons and doing that, how to start something, how to build something, see how do things work. It's fascinating if you can deconstruct that. And the other thing that you have to really think about is the willingness to learn every day. The willingness to sit down and learn. The great minds that have taught me, the great mentors, they're always learning. They're always looking. They're always looking for some other way. But you cannot not put the time in. You can't fake it. You have to do it. You have to be able to say that and do it.
Yeah. I've often heard it described as a growth mindset, when you focus on wanting to grow your life, and it involves learning, as you say, on a daily basis. Yeah.
I mean, and if you have a power of habit, it's fabulous. I mean, and it starts with health. There's the biggest wealth that you can have in your life is your health. Without your health, you're starting at a deficit. So I've always thought that the coolest thing about prep, the phys ed and that stuff carries you through your life.
Yeah.
You have to have that habit of I'm gonna have to work out, I'm gonna have to do this, and you have to do it, and you have to read, and you have to connect, you have to, and you have to be grateful to your customers. You have to be able to. I think one of the coolest things I've ever seen in life, George Bush Sr., when we met him, my dad is a big Arnold Palmer fan. And my dad's was really close with Mr. Palmer. And Arnold Palmer wrote more thank you notes than anybody in the world. And at the end of his life, he was spending $100,000 a year sending people stuff that they asked for his autograph.
Wow.
But when my dad met George Bush Sr., he said, "Hey, Mr. Palmer said, hi, how you doing?" And my dad at the time was giving out pens, little pens. Well, George Bush Sr.'s one goal in life was he wrote 3 thank yous a day. No matter what he did before he went to bed, he wrote 3 thank yous.
Wow.
1 week later, my dad got a thank you from George Bush.
Wow.
And Mr. Palmer was fabulous. My dad's got hundreds of thank you letters from Mr. Palmer. Wow. So that gratitude and that ability to sit down and write a thank you or say thank you goes a long way.
Well, what you're describing is the little things that really separates people, and I want our listeners to really understand that. That sounds like you could sit here and say, "Wow, what a cool story! His dad knows these people, and Jim's met these people." But listen to the power of what you're sharing. These are little things that high achieving people, very successful people do, and it's not like it's a major secret to what gets them to where they're at. When you do these little things, as you say, power of habits,
right?
It creates that success for you to get to where you want to be.
And the ability, a lot of people don't understand in the sales process.
Yeah.
Or something is, if you're in sales, right, and you call somebody, you think that's a connection. The connection is when they reply to you. And the sales process at times, and I've done this a few times, you take 10 tennis balls, and if you and I were sitting here, I'd say, "Hey, Jimmy," and I tossed you. You don't answer me. Okay. "Hey, this is what I'm sending you about. Here." You could throw that tennis ball 8 times before you came back to me, but once we have that connection, it's great.
Yeah.
And, sharing stuff that you have with people, I drive my friends nuts. God rest my friend Rich Miller's soul. But my son and I are doing the Aura rings right now, and it tells you your chronotype, and mine is early riser. And there's a group of early risers in the world. They knew who they are. They're friends of mine. And they'll all get, if I'm on the bike at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm reading something, boom, I send a quick email saying, "Hey, this is cool." If they send back great or not, I love to share and I love to get those. Yeah. And it's really powerful. When we were working with John Kansas at the time, working on the Kansas project, he was an early riser. So it would be nothing for me to get a 3 o'clock email.
Yeah.
And answering those, they don't have to answer it all the time, but if you see something, you think about somebody, and it's valuable to somebody, send it.
Yeah.
They can read it or they can throw it in the garbage, but do it. That's just a way to put something in front of somebody.
Well, I'm an early riser too.
Okay, well,
I'm right there with you.
You have my email address. I'll send you something when I'm up.
Sounds good. You come across something you think I like, you send it over. But I know what you're saying, because it's funny. My wife is not an early riser, so usually I'm up and going in the morning. "Hey, how's it?" And then she's like, "I'm still waking up here."
Well, but that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I've got some really good friends of mine, Dr. Bruce Gebhardt. He's an evening guy, and he's like, he's up till 11 o'clock at night. I've been asleep for 3 hours, but that's okay.
That's right.
But when you get up, it's great, and there's so much to learn, and there's so much that you can do, and it's part of that.
Now, a few times you've referenced this power of habit.
Uh-huh.
Can you describe for us what you mean by that?
Power of habit is a power of habit is one of those things that there's a whole bunch of things that you should do. Number one, you've got to show up. Every day you got to show up. You've got to depend, no matter what it is. You got to show up to work. You got to show up for your kids. You got to show up to church. No matter what it is.
Yeah.
You never miss those things. Number two, never come empty-handed when you go somewhere. You know, if you're going to see somebody, my dad was phenomenal at this because he always is leaving something. You know, here's a pen.
Yeah.
Here's my dad's probably given out $100,000 in $1 gold coins to people. He sees somebody, he hands them to them.
Yeah.
And it's something, and somebody goes, wow, he gave me a gold coin. Yeah, he gave you a gold coin. But you look at it, you remember it.
Yes.
You know, the other thing is, you know, habit. Clean up when you leave a room. Don't leave a mess. You know, when you're done, you know, get that done. 5, you know, habit is luck. You know, count your blessings. You know, there's not a day that you're not thankful for what you got, but some of that is luck. You know, habit, faith. That 1 hour, whether it be praying every morning on your bike or going to church or whatever, that's the kind of stuff you need. You know, you've got to have that faith. And finally, at the end, you have to give thanks. You have to be, you know, and it does, you know, with your customers or with anybody. That thankfulness, no matter whether it be sending a card, or, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So, and then in habit, you know, you have to do it. You have to put the hours in. You know, 10,000 hours, they throw it around. But you have to do it. You can't, you know, once you do it that much, it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, 500 pages a day they read. 500 pages.
Yeah.
Sit down and try to read 500 pages.
I'd struggle with that right now.
You know, but at least if you give it an effort and try, it's the same as, you know, exercise. You got to start small. And once you do and then continue to do it, it's habit. I've had friends that have been working out for 40 years, never missed a day.
Yeah.
So, you know, diligence.
There's a book I read called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Okay.
And he talks about the power of habit. And he says, you know, if you have a penny and you were to double it every day for a month.
Yep.
Or would you rather have $1 million, or like $500,000 was the option. And if you choose a penny a day, doubled every day, after those 31 days, it's over $5 million. Which you would never think. Most people would just take the immediate $500,000.
Right.
When really, the advantage is when you do something consistently over and over again. That was the message behind the example, and that's exactly what you're talking about right now.
And it's true. I mean, and you know, thinking about giving back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm more, you know, if you're going to give to somebody, try to give it to scholarships and things like that, where you that money's going on the horse. You want that person that maybe couldn't get there, get there. So, you know, and that's, you know, that compounding is factual.
Yeah.
I mean, read anything from Shane Parrish. He's got a podcast that's phenomenal, and the Knowledge Project. He's fabulous. But, you know, Warren Buffett, a lot of his wealth came after he was 60, in his late 60s. And, you know, but he lived a long time.
Right.
So, and, you know, look at companies. Look at Erie Insurance. Erie Insurance started back in 1938 or 39. 2 guys were partners, got in the insurance business. The Colley brothers, the priests from St. Pat's, funded it, and look where it's at today.
Right.
And that's a power of habit and compounding. And that's another family business. And they treat it like family. So, I mean, you have to look at your relationships as familia. They're your family.
Yes. Amen to that. I couldn't agree with you more. And, you know, the other thing that I find, you know, pretty fascinating with just your bio and whatnot is the amount of boards and things that you've seen through those boards and experiences and whatnot, outside of your own experience or, you know, running your business. And how do you, so in what you've seen, how would you best describe how you approach decision making in high pressure situations? So I'm sure some of these board meetings have been ones where you really have to get together and discuss something that's going to impact the future of an organization, and you have those tough conversations about what's right, wrong, and or what direction to go. So what advice do you have for people in those situations?
Well, like boards, me getting on boards was kind of is a roundabout thing.
Yeah.
When I was at Gannon, we started a fraternity,
Yeah.
And I walked in because how we funded the fraternity was we had a raffle every weekend at Gannon at the time. You had to get your poster stamped for these raffles. And I won't tell you what we raffled off, but it was quite successful, and it funded our fraternity. And I walked in, it was my senior year at Gannon, and I walked in to have somebody stamp my poster, and the girl that was there, she goes, are you here for student government? We're looking for senior reps. And she knew me because I was in engineering.
Yeah.
And I said, sure, but could you stamp my poster? And went to the first student government meeting, and it was a 2-hour, long meeting, drawn out. Afterwards, I went to the president at the time and I said, hey, can we just cut it? You bring it down into something manageable. What do you want to get done?
Right.
And we got to become really good friends.
Yeah.
Got the meetings manageable, but made a lot of lifelong friends. And when we were done, I said, why are you president of student government? And he goes, 2 reasons. 1, I get a free scholarship for the whole year. So when you're in student government, you have a scholarship. 2, I get to be on the Gannon board. And I thought to myself, well, that's a good goal for life, to get on the Gannon board.
Yeah.
And it was really a circuitous path of, my mother-in-law, Mary Teresa Riley, big villa, all Bell Villa. My wife taught at Villa. My mom was the secretary at Villa for a bunch of years. My sisters went there. My cousins went there. It's all around the Villa circle.
Yeah.
And they asked me to be on the board of the Villa Center because at that time Gannon had taken over Villa.
Yep. College
because Villa couldn't support it. Gannon owned it for a while, and then they didn't need the campus, so the Villa Center ended up back with the sisters, and they had this. And my mother-in-law was on the Villa Center board, so I got to know the sisters. And next thing you know, the sisters asked me if I'd like to be on the board of St. Vincent Hospital. Mm. So now I'm on a hospital board. Now I'm getting around I'm learning about healthcare. I learned about conference centers. I really want to be on the Gannon board. And at the time, they asked my dad to be on the board of the Manufacturers Association. And he said, no, I'm past my prime, put my son on there. So I ended up being on the board of the Manufacturers Association, and it rolled into a presidency. And then Gannon asked me to be on the Gannon board. And I'm still, 23 years later, I'm still on Gannon board. And so I got on all these boards, but learning, those decisions aren't in vacuums. And the thing about boards is you have people that are working toward that, and they're looking for your knowledge and your input. And you get to learn about all different kinds of businesses. And every business, no matter what it is, breaks down the same thing. You're getting paid for time.
Yeah.
Some type of time or something like that. And how do they do it? And how do they manage that? So learning that and looking how people do things really is helpful. You get to learn all different kinds of things. And when you have these decisions, you have to sit down and you have to look and say, hey, I'm part of a team. I might have to make the decision, but what's the best information at hand at this time for you to make your decision on how you want to do it? And believe me, there's many times where I've guessed wrong. You guessed wrong, and okay, I did. Let's keep on moving. You can't take a failure and say, oh, I'm done. That's it. I can't sit back. I mean, there's been many times we've had clients that we couldn't serve or help, and you just, okay, it didn't work. What's next?
Yeah.
Same with investing, or same with anything else. You make the best educated guess at the time, and some of them really work and some of them don't.
Yeah.
But again, it's learning that and knowing that the edge is the information.
Very insightful and information there to, because we all face decisions of different levels, right? Some very high level responsibility, some mid-level, and some, entry level type of decisions. But you're learning the process of making those decisions and learning with the either success or failure of that decision. But to your point, don't worry about the failures. Just keep learning from that and keep moving forward.
Well, I came across this a few years ago, and I think you and I just talked about it a little earlier, not on the podcast, but, decisions now I start thinking, and I'm 62 years old, and they call it the 1-1-10 rule.
Yes.
Is it going to matter a day from now? Is it going to matter a year from now? And am I going to remember it 10 years from now? Well, I've made it 115 because, 5 years. I mean, not that my goal's always been to live to 100. I don't know why, but still,
yes.
The older you get, the odds. It's an odds table because near as I can figure, there's no one that's got out of this game alive.
Just one person, right?
Just one person. Yeah, but he had to go through the process.
He did. Yeah. That's funny. Oh man. No, this is good stuff. Continuing on with some of the things that I kind of noted down to talk to you about here today. For someone in your role, overseeing such a diverse range of functions, from what we read earlier, how do you approach workforce development to ensure the team is equipped with the necessary skills within their roles?
So this is one thing I'm near and dear to. I mean, I've been doing workforce development because I've been on the board of the Chamber and the Erie Regional Manufacturing Partnership.
Right.
And growing workforce is a really, really hard. Today, it's harder than it ever has been. You got demographic issues. You've got people issues, wants, needs, and desires. So workforce development has really changed. Where before, 10 years ago, we could put a sign out in front on 12th Street at Industrial Sales, and we'd have 25 people come in and look for a job. We'd go months without people walking in the door.
Wow.
So that has all changed. And, the world's changed with the cell phone and all kinds of stuff. And what do people need? Do they think career-wise? How do they think? So there's a big gap as to where that is. And trying to find those people. Before, the schools would graduate 1,000 students every 10 years to go in manufacturing. We're lucky if we get 10 to 25 to 50. So it's workforce development is really what is your culture? What is your culture to get people to want to come work for you, number one? And, what is your mission? And our mission is we're contract manufacturing. We do machine, fabricate, and assemble components for a myriad of industries. We're using technology and people to make products from 1 to 1 million. And with success, that gives our growth to our communities, our company, and the people we work with.
Yeah.
So you really have to have that culture and say people that really want to, hey, this is my career.
Yeah.
And, and to be honest, it's the same thing. If you're in a long career, that person that's in that job and stays in that long career out-earns and has a better success over their life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, workforce development's hard. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing easy about workforce development. But if you talk to another prep grad, Ted Miller, Rich's son, he's in Kenya right now. He's working for a company called Burn Stoves that they make stoves, carbon credit stoves, but carbon because in Africa, they need to eat. And the way that they cook is with fire. And that fire is very pollutant. Well, they've come up with a way to cut the carbon down and everything. They have a plant in Kenya with 1,000 people that want to go to work every day and 1,000 people standing outside there that want to get in and get a job.
Wow.
It would be fabulous to see that happen, but the world, Erie, Pennsylvania, United States, it's all changed. What does that person need? So you have to try to match that up.
Now, was it a challenge for you when you noticed that shift in the industry to where you said earlier, you could put up a sign and you get people lining up at the door. Now you put up a sign, it might be months before somebody walks in. Was it a challenge to see that shift and adjust?
Oh, it's always been a challenge because you try, you get work and you have work, and how do you get to take care of your customers? So now we're spending more and more money on automation to lever the workforce we had. Everybody goes, oh man, you put a robot in, you get rid of my job. Every piece of automation that we've put in our plant has levered our workforce by 10. We have 150 people working at ISM.
Yeah.
Before we bought that plant, it was Johnson Controls. They had 400 people working there.
Oh, wow.
So that technology and things like that, like I always tell people when we walk through the plant, and it's at the time when I got out of school, our plant fit in a room about 5,000 square feet. And what we did in a year, we do in 3 days in sales.
Wow.
So that is so much different. People go, oh, manufacturing dying. No, manufacturing, Erie County is about 20% of our workforce. It's just not as many people because of technology and things like that. So you really have to up your game. I mean, we're right now the AI. My brother's working hard on AI and equipment and things to try to optimize your process to do more with less people.
AI is a buzzword right now.
It is.
Anything you can share with us listeners who maybe don't know much about AI other than what we've seen, on Twitter and just some...
It's an ever-changing marketplace and ways to do things, and it's something that, as you can see, technology is unreal. And I can tell you, just in the fact that when I graduated from Guyana in 1983, my first computer was the size of an air conditioner, and it did 64 bytes of knowledge on a floppy disk. There was minimal internet. The only way you could get things was a fax machine at the time, and a cell phone at the time was a radio phone in your car because my dad had one, and it was a party line. So you think from 1983 to now, if you would have told Jim that your cell phone has a computing power of the most powerful IBM computer that back in the day was there, I was paying $300 a month for cable, internet, phone. I'd have said, your TV?
Yeah.
You're nuts.
Right.
And that's how much it's changed, but that's how much knowledge and things that have been, there.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing, those technological advances that have been occurring, and now, of course, the AI, and, there's a lot of things I've read about that, but I think the biggest thing is just how can businesses now adapt to what AI can bring to help optimize their companies to not, like you said, not get rid of workers, but actually help those workers even be more productive and better at what they're doing.
Right. I mean, and the thing is there's a lot of jobs out there that Americans used to do that no American wants to do anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that technology is got to be there to help you, and you've got to be able to utilize that to say, how can I do it better, faster, cheaper?
Yeah.
But only because that's what you need.
Yeah. Now, in talking about some of your sales experience and whatnot, can you share an example with us about maybe a challenging sales situation that you've encountered with one of your customers or potential customers, and how you navigated through it to achieve a successful outcome?
Well, every sales process is different. Everything you have to treat, it's not, everybody says, oh, sales is just sales, is sales is sales. No, they're all different experiences and what your customer expects. I mean, believe me, in my world, it's contract manufactured parts. I've had a customer tell me, what my optimum is? Free, fast, and perfect. Oh, that's really, he goes, if you can get as close to that as possible, we'll have a long career. Yeah. So trying to figure out how you sell somebody like that.
Right.
Challenging. I mean, everything's challenging. People don't understand. I have 58,000 competitors in the fabrication space, another 58,000 or 60,000 in the machining space, and that's just in the United States. The world is now smaller, so it's challenging. Would be a customer calling you on a Friday and saying, "Hey, I need this part on Monday. I'm trying to sell $1 million locomotive, and this $50 part is what I need to do this, and I don't have the wherewithal. I'm the extension of manufacturer. How can we get it done?"
Yeah. And
being able to get that done for your customers.
Wow.
And repeat and rinse. It is a repeat and rinse every day. Not the same, but that part, that's the challenging part.
Right.
And the other thing is sales, you have to be consistent. I have an 11 item sheet that, people, and that I ask my customer the same 11 questions. And then look at them to see, and you start with, how's your family? And then, the most powerful thing you're going to ask somebody is, what keeps you up at night? So I'm going to ask you, what keeps you up at night?
Me right now?
You. What keeps you up at night?
My family's health, my family's well-being, that they're pursuing, things that bring them faith, life with joy. Those are the things that keep me up at night.
Those are good things to keep you up at night. And everybody has a different one.
Yeah.
And, learning that helps you understand where they're at and what, how you can help them.
Yeah.
And it's a great question. Even if you don't know what to ask anybody, it's an awesome question to ask people what keeps you up at night.
Well, I like that it's an open-ended question, and like you just asking me, it kind of like, oh, me right now? Let me think for a second here. Keep me on my toes, Jim. I like it.
Uh-huh.
Well, what about you? What keeps you up at night?
Health.
Yeah.
Am I going to be healthy? Is my family secure?
Yeah.
Is my family going to be secure? Are those 150 people that work for us, are they going to be secure? But more often than not, it's how can I keep my customers happy that they continue to want to share us with work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the older you get, that what keeps you up at night changes.
Sure.
I could say that I'm 62 years old, and what's the next 20 going to look like?
Well, the easy answer could have been for me. My 1-year-old right now crying in the middle of the night keeps me up at night, literally.
Oh, I had our oldest was on a crying jag for about 6 months.
Oh man!
And we have our first granddaughter, and she's 15 months. And when she starts crying, I go, music to my ears, But it's something that, as a parent, you have to remember. The first 5 years, they remember nothing, and you remember everything. Yeah. And you've got to remember, as your spouse and you, we're going to remember it. They're not gonna. So,
right.
That's something that you then have to embrace and say, okay, we got to roll with this. We got to, how do we make them good humans? And that's how you work at it. And it's one bit of knowledge at a time.
Well, part of it is I think I'm in the syndrome of thinking light at the end of the tunnel. So I have 4 kids.
Okay.
My oldest is 5.
Yep.
And then my second oldest will be 4 in February, 2.5, and then 1. So the youngest, we're done with 4. I think it's like I'm so hoping that she gets over this hump. I can see that she's almost in those toddler years now.
Well, she'll get there, brother. You got no problem with it getting there. You've got a fun life ahead, and there's nothing better than kids. There's nothing better than the older they get. There's nothing better than sitting there and talking with your son or your daughter, and seeing what they are. My son Charlie's at Pitt now. He's a sophomore. And just the conversations now.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about this, Dad? What are you thinking about that?
That's cool.
Those are fabulous. And you're going to get there and you're going to really enjoy it, but you're going to blink an eye and go, where did those 25 years go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Embrace that, because the first 18 years is 85% of the time you're going to spend with your kids. So.
And all listeners, he's talking to me, but he's talking to all of us right now. So.
It's true. It's true. And cherish those times. I have a really good friend of mine, and we both kind of agree with the same thing. It's not the ability in the world to own things. It's the ability to do things, experiences, do things.
Yeah.
And if you have that ability to do things, that's far better than owning something. Don't get me wrong. It's great to own things.
Yeah.
But that's...
Yeah. No, that's cool. I appreciate you sharing that. I always try to keep that in perspective, right? Because some days can definitely be longer than others, but it's, focusing on the bigger picture here of, being, like we were talking about way earlier in the podcast, the gratitude part of your career and, working where you do, but also the gratitude with your family, really appreciating those moments that we have now and not wishing it away because, to your point, we're going to blink and they're going to be grown up and out of this phase of life. So, as much as we might joke, we're looking forward to it. We're enjoying it.
The best thing you can do as a parent, and I tell this to all my friends, is imprint your voice on your children's soul. Because the best thing my mother has given me is I can close my mind and I can hear my mom as clear as a bell. So if you can impart that on anybody you meet, you're way ahead.
Yeah. Well, and kind of, tying the podcast in here with the parent lesson that we have going on, how do you balance the work life, between, obviously, like to your point, you might get a call Friday afternoon, evening about something you need to do for a customer Monday morning. Where do you balance, the work responsibilities with your family obligations and responsibilities?
I think you really have to really work with your family to understand that there are times that you might not be able to be there. You want to be there, but you can't. But there are obligations that you have to honor, and you have to do that. And you just try to balance it. try not to miss every sporting event, or try not to miss any sporting events.
Yeah.
But if you have to, yeah, they understand. People understand.
Right.
But my family is the most important thing to me. If they need something, I'm there for them.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that a meal with somebody, I don't care if it's your friend, I don't care if it's your kid, anybody, is the greatest thing you can do for somebody, because you got to eat.
Yeah.
And if you can sit there and talk about it and have the experiences and things, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
So, I've always thought that, unfortunately, prep, I have to say prep kind of wrecked me on the eating side, because I'm the fastest eater ever in my life, and I've never been able to govern it, because we had 20 minutes to have lunch, and you had 5 to going back and forth. So by the time you got to the cafeteria, you were powdering whatever was in front of you,
just throwing it down,
and then getting back and rolling. And I wish I could get around that, but I understand it. It is what it is.
Well, and these kids today, they have no idea. You've seen the new center. That's their new cafeteria. They don't run down to lunch anymore. They got 45-minute lunches. Oh, they got it easy compared to sprinting down under the cathedral, to go get lunch real quick before you head back to class.
This is a country club you got going here, and that's all right. That's wonderful. That's great that they're able to have that experience.
Yeah,
it's the same.
It really is.
I was same as a Gannon. Going to Dan Carnival Center down there and looking at the weight room and all this stuff and going, oh my God, when I was at Gannon, the weight room was in the top of the odd, and it was the size of this room, and this room is about 8 by 8 with a universal machine. That was our gym. So, this is kind of great.
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of an upgrade from. Oh, man. Now, in talking about, kind of back to the business side of things, with your experiences and whatnot, what leadership principles do you prioritize to ensure the smooth functioning of your organization? It sounds like a funny question, but I would imagine 150 employees. There's a lot of moving pieces.
Well, it's
a lot of things happening.
We're lucky, because my brother, who's the genius of the group, my brother's a fabulous manufacturing guy. Mm-hmm. My sister counts the shekels. She's the accountant. We're on the sales side. We all work together. You have to have a good team that works together, but it's culture. It's what, your family. My dad's showing up every day.
Yeah.
At 86 years old, my dad walking in the door at 7:30 every day. And that's fabulous. And there's a lot of people in the world that still do that. Mm. So, leadership is lead by example, be there. Mm. Expect that everything's not going to work out perfect. Sure. And how can you handle that? And of course, it's you have to look at it that it's for the customer. At any given time, it's for a customer. You can't say, I don't want to do this because I just don't feel like doing it. Well, your customer's the one paying the bills. You got to do it.
Right.
And how do you do it, and how do you get it done? And the more stuff, profit is real simple. It's, somebody buying something from you and you're able to do it in less time than you figured it out. So that's basically what you have to do, is try to figure out how you can make that profit and make things grow. So you have to really sit there and think about it. And you've got to make your own luck. To be honest, some luck is great, but the more opportunities you swing at, the more opportunities you have for luck. Mm. So.
Yeah. I was trying to think, it was some sports quote about, 1,000 times, you shoot it, and it's so much about the luck of it and whatnot, about how it happens. But
I thought Charlie Munger from Berkshire Hathaway passed away, and I was watching one of his things, and the one thing really stuck with me was, if you have an opportunity, don't be shy with that opportunity. And he was the pie counter. His grandfather said, if you have an opportunity at the pie counter, don't be shy. And that's true. Don't be shy with your opportunities. If you have an opportunity, you go all in at it. Don't say, oh, I'm going to just take a little bit of it, or I'm going to do this. You've got to go all in.
Right. The double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, right? That's right from the Bible.
You are correct.
And there's a lot of wisdom in that, right?
There sure is.
So meaning, one foot in, one foot out on an opportunity, you're not going to have the best
Right.
success as to what you're saying. You just go right for it and do your best to pursue it.
Yeah, I got to ask you a question. Since you got to ask me a bunch of questions, what's the book you give the most?
The book I give the most. Compound Effect is a book that I used to give out a lot to people. Recently, it's the book Cathedral Prep Century of Excellence,
Nice.
a 100-year history
That's
of prep.
awesome.
So that's a book that I've been given recently. The Bible as well. That's a big, one that gift I'll give people depending on where they're at in life and conversations I've had with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good question though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good. I mean, mine switches. I mean, I had one that I still. If you want one on health, it's Live Longer and Stronger Till You're 80 and Be Sexy. It's an $8 book. It's Harry's Rules. It's fabulous. I mean, I have to say, Arnold Schwarzenegger's book right now that he came out with, Be Useful, is as good it's as good as it gets. Be useful. Do something of use. I think that's just awesome. I mean, there's those kind of things. Books are great.
Yeah.
Vessels of knowledge. So I think that's one thing is, what can you give somebody? Like I said, always be able to give somebody something.
Well, there's two others I'll mention. How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. That's a good one. And then What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I forget the author.
I'd like to read that one.
That one is really good because it's all about the words that you have up here in your head. And, if you, for example, you're doing something, you make a mistake, do you say to yourself, I'm so dumb?
Right.
Well, you're going to keep programming your mind to think that way about yourself.
Right.
And it goes into the science behind it.
Well, that's really good. That's a good one.
I'll share that one with you.
That's a good one. I'm trying to get my son a book for Christmas, and that's a good one.
There you go.
I got him Be Useful, and he already read it. He beat me to the punch, so that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But, that's awesome. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Self-talk is one thing that people, if you self-talk to yourself negatively, you're defeating yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and it all starts with the power of your mind, right? The way that you're going to approach any situation, how you view it, and what you can say to yourself about it is half the battle right there. A lot of what you're talking about through this podcast episode is the things that, it's not even about the function of the job that we're doing. It's about the external things that make us successful at the work we choose to do. Which is why these podcasts have been so much fun for me to sit down with people like yourself and talk about those things, because those are the difference makers in becoming successful or whatnot. So yeah, that's pretty neat. All right, so just a couple more questions for you, then we'll get you out of here. One of the last ones I wanted to ask you. So people who are listening to this podcast episode, they're working their way up the ladder, right, in corporate, speak, so to say. They're pursuing success. Maybe you're looking at potential leadership positions for themselves. What advice would you have for those people who are looking to aspire to the next level in their career?
Well, I'm going to give you the Tim Ferriss one because I always think it's fabulous. Because if you had one thing to put on a billboard, what would it be? And mine would be one word: compete. You've got to compete every day. You're in a competition for something. You have to compete. You have to have that ability to compete.
Is that something that drives you even on a daily basis now in your career? Is that idea that you need to compete with yourself or whatever it is?
Well, you compete with yourself every day on your health side. You can compete every day and go, should I eat that? Shouldn't I eat that? Should I work out? Should I not work out? So, everything, you got to look at it as, what am I competing against? And it can be anything. I mean, what am I competing? Am I competing on my earnings? Do I want to beat the S&P 500? Do I want to beat the best Ray Dalio, the best minds? Do I want to beat John Salata?
Yeah.
I mean, guys, look at prep history. Some of these folks, it's all compete. And prep, one thing about prep, we're competitors.
Yeah, we are.
And that's a great thing to have. You want that piece of competition no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Look and see what's, I played golf with a guy one time, and he ran the USOC for Atlanta Olympics, and I said, well, what's the most motivational thing you ever saw? And he said, well, I brought so many athlete motivators in, and he goes, I brought Lance Armstrong in. And Lance Armstrong, no matter what, he's still a great competitor. And he said, how did you drive yourself? And he said, how did you get through the wall? And he said, when I was riding the bike, I would think to myself, I'm so gassed, go one more minute. And he would go, okay. And if I got through that minute, I'd go one more minute. He goes, I got through 8 walls. He goes, by just that thought. So if you're doing something, whatever you're doing, think, oh, I'm done. Put one more minute in. Put one more rep in. Put one more of something in. And usually that unlocks the next thing that you need.
That's the extra mile, right? That they say.
Yes.
Yes. And again, these are the difference makers, right? That make us successful or not, is the ability to get in that frame of mind where you can say, I just need that one more rep, one more minute. I just need that one extra mile just to get that next level.
In sales, can I make one more phone call?
Yeah.
Can I do one more? What can I do one more of?
Right. And we'll surprise ourselves when we do that, of how much we can accomplish when you push yourself like that. All right, last question for you. It's funny you brought up Tim Ferriss, because so his question, right, about what you put on a billboard, that's something that he asks all the podcast guests, right?
Yep.
So I have a theme in my podcast where the last question I ask all the alumni guests is, if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, and give your commencement address at your prep graduation, what would you say to your classmates at that time? So that's what I'd like to ask you now, Jim.
That's a good one. That's a good one, number one, because most people don't even remember what the commencement address was.
Yeah.
Except ours was over here on the steps of the cathedral, and it was Bishop Watson, and we got caught in a rainstorm, thunder, lightning. So I couldn't really tell you.
Yeah.
But what would I say to my classmates?
Yep. Knowing what you know now.
I would say, hey, we're all here in this together, no matter what. We're all going to go our separate ways, but we're all men of prep, and we're all brothers. And if you need something, we're here to lean on that. We had our successes when we had our successes when we were here, and we're going to have our successes elsewhere. But if you need somebody or you need a place to go, preps, go back to those days. Pick up that phone, call that person, somebody you haven't talked to in years. I mean, I have to say, John Bloomstein is fabulous at this. And we were at the Gannon last night at the Hammer Mill Center before they're redoing it.
Yeah.
And John and I were talking. He goes, I saw Ed Losey's brother. They went to school here. I hadn't seen him in a while. I'm going over to say hi to him.
Yeah.
Go over and say hi when you see somebody, because you don't know when you're ever going to say hi again. But we're all here for that. Even teachers. I mean, your teachers spent a lot of time for you. You might not have loved your teachers. You might not have any of that. You might not have cared for them, but man, they did teach you some stuff.
Yeah.
And that was what I would be. It would be we're all around together. Pick up that phone or pick up and say, hey, I'm here, or what's going on, or.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a great way to end this podcast, because it seems like a theme through this episode has been, how available you are to people. You're a people-centered first guy, whether it's been your classmates at prep, your customers, your employees, your family. You're a people-first guy, and that's pretty cool. That's been the common theme here I've heard through this podcast, is when you make people the priority, your success is inevitable, because you're making it about making other people's lives better.
I agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly. Roll Ramblers for sure.
Roll Ramblers for sure. And I appreciate this conversation, Jim. I really appreciate your time coming down here, being able to, sit here and record this podcast episode. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. So just want to thank you again, for your commitment and your loyalty to prep and your willingness to come on here and be a guest.
Well, hey, it's been a pleasure. I'll always love coming back.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Jim. Appreciate it.